Welcome back to Kevin Towle Reads. I hope you're doing well. This is Let Me Know, number 24. Haven't done a Let Me Know in a hot minute, so I came across an idea last night, wrote it down, and then this morning I was like, hey, I'm going to outline this thing. I think this has some legs to it, and so I'm going to throw it out there. I'm always interested in your guys' feedback. I definitely think some people may even do response videos to this because I think it's an interesting topic and it's definitely something that's prevalent. But yeah, let's dive right into it. So today's topic is the BookTube effect. Yeah, what is that? Did I just coin a new phrase out of the blue? Well, does being on BookTube, whether you're active as a content creator or a constant subscriber that comments on people's videos and is active in that way, does it create a sense of being overwhelmed? Is that what the BookTube effect is? So there's several different parts here, and so we're going to kick it off with part number one. The BookTube effect. What is it? And so I have a couple topics here. Constant exposure to new books. Yeah. New releases, book hauls, monthly TBRs, any video that brings new temptations to you all. You know, you're always hearing about the next best thing, the next best author, hidden gems, blacklisted books. They all sound intriguing and they create a sense of, yeah, I need to get to that. You also have something that is not new, but is called FOMO. You know, your fear of missing out is real even when it comes to BookTube. You start feeling like you're behind if you haven't read the most hyped book of recently. If you haven't, joined read-alongs or reading events, or you're not doing live streams, or if you're not talking about the trending authors just to keep up, you have a sense of missing out. And so with that being said, let's move on to part number two. Now that we know what the BookTube effect is, what are the signs of being overwhelmed? Well, decision fatigue. Yeah, this is one that kind of hit with me. And this is the one kind of section of this video and this topic that kind of spurred the whole thing. Decision fatigue is real. It is. It's something that I've recently struggled with. There's just too many good options, and it's hard to pick what your next read is going to be. I've recently struggled with this myself. As I said, I think it's prevalent, and you can see it when I comment to all of you wonderful commenters out there that are telling me, hey, you should try this out, or this series is right up your alley. I love all those comments. I take notes on all of those. I have a long list going of books that you all recommend and series that you recommend that's on my series list that I've shared with you. And so I take those to heart, don't get me wrong, and I'm very appreciative of those. But as you see in my comments, and I've said this many times, especially recently, that there's just not enough time in the day to get to all the great things I want to read. I can list off, I want to get back to Lovecraft. I want to get back to Robert E. Howard. I want to read Solomon Kane. I need to get on some of these series that I've made a priority and others that I've parked for later. I have standalone thrillers that I wanted to get to. I'm talking about another reading event that I want to do about nostalgia books I read as a young adult. And so there's so much. I mean, I just recently picked up, how many hauls have I done where I picked up just steals of books? I have so much to read, but there's just not enough time. And so it makes deciding my next TBR very, very difficult. Second point of sign of being overwhelmed is burnout or a reading slump. If you get into a position where the joy of reading is just sucked out of you because it becomes a task versus an actual thing that you want to do because you need to de-stress, or you are looking forward to it at the end of your day, or how you start your day, and that gets sucked away from you because it feels like a to-do versus an enjoyment. That is definitely a sign of being overwhelmed. And then lastly, in this part, the pressure to perform. And no, I'm not talking about the blue pill here, people. Let's keep our mind, out of the gutter here. I'm talking about when reading feels like content creation. You're reading to create something, not reading because, hey, I like this author, I like this series, I like this character, this genre. You're reading to create, not reading to read. And that is definitely prevalent. So let's move on to part three. How do you balance enthusiasm and sanity? Balance is hard. I talk about it on the channel a lot. I was the one that was talking about not too long ago, hey, remember that October when I was doing 2 videos a day? Yeah, when I talk about balance, yeah, that was crazy. But in this part, the first section, I want to talk about acknowledging the positives. You know, you have to. As we talk about something that may be taken as a negative, there is positives to everything. You know, BookTube does expose you to fantastic authors and books. You do. You get insights from people that are like-minded, like certain genres and books just like you, that have takes on it that are far better and more reliable than Goodreads and others that you're just another number. And so, yeah, that's great. There's also great community discussions, live events, and those are a heck of a lot of fun. So there is some positives there. But what are some strategies to help keep your sanity? Help keep you enthusiastic about your next reads? Well, you need to read what you want. You know, stop reading what's trending, you know, because just because it's trending doesn't mean you're going to like it. You know, taking off camera reading breaks. Don't read just to create content, read to read. And that's something that we all have to be reminded of. You know, monthly TBRs with flexibility. I've always talked about my TBR being very flexible because it doesn't matter if it takes me a month or 6 months. Now, with some of the reading events, you know, you are confined into a time constraint to some regard, but most of the time, it doesn't matter if it takes me 2 weeks or 2 months. My TBR is my TBR. I don't really care. But most people, their TBRs are calendar based, so they are confined by time. Maybe thinking about being more flexible there. And then mood reading versus content creating. I think that goes without saying, but I'll mention it. Yeah, read based on your mood, not just to create content. And then lastly, when it comes to balance and enthusiasm, you have to be okay with not reading everything. You know, you have to be okay with not being involved in everything. And that's okay in and of itself. You know, you will never read all the books you get. Even though you get great deals and hauls and you haul more books than you could ever read, that's okay too. It's nice to have options. But reading is not a competition. It's a conversation with yourself and with others. And that's what this community is about. So part number 4. This is where we talk about what are the questions I have for you. What do I want from you with regard to this video? And so the community questions really is, have you ever felt overwhelmed? You know, by all the books, the voices on YouTube, what you see out there, does it create a sense of FOMO? Does it create a sense of being overwhelmed or anxiety? How do you manage the constant flood of new recommendations, new authors, new genres, new series? How do you deal with that? You know, do you have tips? Do you have tricks? What are your experiences? Do you have TBR guilt? You know, what has helped you avoid these pitfalls? I'm interested. As always, I want to know what your take is on these things. This is an amazing platform, but even too much of a good thing can be, well, a lot. So as always, let me know. I'll talk to you later.